to Mornings with Mobile, where authenticity lives and thrives to create. Oh, I spilled something on myself. To create a space of growth, healing, and joy. I am your host, Andrea Lawful Sanders, and each day we will cover the topics that are informative and engaging while learning from each other. Good morning to each and every one of you. It is Monday, September 29th, 2025. I am hoping that you are all doing well. It's been whoo child. Every morning I come on now, I go, it's been whoo. David Alexander Jenkins will join us this morning as always. And as I am talking to you, I'm looking for morning motivation that will encourage, not not make you feel like you've lost your mind. Shh, shh, shh. This is a good one. Nah, I've read this one before. Good morning to all of you. It's been a weekend. I have now 2 funerals to attend next Saturday, October 4th. And I am just trying to figure it out like the rest of you, right? Okay, so let me do the morning motivation and then I will look for David while we do a little bit of news. I'm praying that you all had at least a decent enough weekend where you can figure out, where you've been doing things that you've wanted to do. Good morning, Fee, Bobby, Monica, and Winetta. Good morning to all of you. I see you here. Margarita! Marguerite, good morning. Good morning too. I see all of you. Let me read this and we'll go from here. This one is about not making assumptions, right? What do you do when you're standing in the ladies' room and just as a woman walks by you to go into a stall, the person next to you hollers out, "Men's bathroom is across the hall." The lady stopped, caught my eye, and she clearly conveyed these words with her corneas. I know she ain't calling me no dude. I corrected the lady that made the assumption, and she said, "That ain't a man." I tipped my finger in the air like an usher in the church and tiptoed out of the bathroom before a situation erupted. Second scenario. What do you do when you're having a wonderful conversation with a man that in your head is 100% gay and his wife walks over and sits beside him? Do you tilt your head like the Leaning Tower of Pisa? Do you act like a Scooby-Doo in your head and say "ruh-roh"? Or do you adjust your halo, blink slightly, and never miss a beat in your conversation because this ain't none of your business? Assumptions gonna be the death of y'all. Good morning. Both of these incidents happened right in front of me. And I want us to be very mindful about the assumptions that we make. There are women who are born with a condition where their hair follicles create a beard for them. They have a beard and they look male with breasts. So you can't assume that they're transgender. You have to just be very mindful. And I have been in scenarios where I'm talking to a man and I think he's gay and then his wife walks up, right? So we have to be very mindful. Some men can be very effeminate. Some women can be more masculine, like have masculine energy. And so we have to be very mindful about how we navigate this world and this space because we just don't know. Good morning, Beatrice, Alexandra. Good morning, Butterfly. Thank Marguerite, one of the people that passed away. Thank you, Bobby, and happy birthday when it comes for you, Bobby. Good morning, Laura. Good morning to all of you. I see you here every morning. Beatrice, thank you. I'm going to share something with you, but let me let David in. Good morning, my darling.
Good morning. How are you?
Yes, I'm good. I set up my screen so that I'm off to the side and you're the focus.
Oh, well, I hope that I live up to this focus moment.
Before we get started, 2 says polycystic ovary syndrome, otherwise known as PCOS, cause some women to grow facial hair. They're women that literally have beards, right? Just because of the conditions, right? So I was telling people to not make assumptions when they see folks.
Well, I am not one. So
Well, we all know you're a male. You have disclosed, told us all the things. Good morning, Viola. I hope you had a good birthday weekend. David, good morning, Laverne. I see you all. Um, yes, Marguerite. But see, sometimes when people don't know what to say and do out of their mouths, they'll do that kind of stuff, right? even the best of us who think we're together and we're worldly and all of that, sometimes we make those decisions, right? Alexander says, good morning, David.
Good morning. Good
I wish you
morning.
were on a computer or something where you could see all their comments, because you can see
Oh,
them.
that would
They're
be
all talking to you. So David, I thank you every Monday for joining me. And this morning I want to confess something to you.
shoot.
There are days I think if I just disappeared off the air, it wouldn't make a difference, right? And I get up and I say, I don't know. They'll be fine. Nobody's going to join. Everybody will be okay. And then I get on here and I see them all here waiting at 6:30. And honestly, my friend, I need a little bit of inspiration today.
Yeah,
I do.
yeah.
I don't know how you feel with all the stuff that's going on, but there are days when I'm just like, what, why? Ooh, ah. And I'm praying it doesn't last, right? But I feel like being honest with everybody here will help us to kind of navigate and go through what is it that we're experiencing.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Well, it does, and I tell you. So I spent last week at the United Nations for much of it, and spoke for the community of Bangladesh. And in that conversation, as I was on my way on the Acela back to Manhattan, back and forth, I was all week long. I was thinking to myself, why? What are you getting out of this moment? What is motivating you? What is causing you to continue forward? This is not a paid gig. Like, I think people think that someone signs $1 million checks to us every day when we
Mhm.
get up and get on the air. That's not
Mhm.
true. But the answer was because the work that we're doing is impactful, not just for the people that we're doing it with, but also for us, for me particularly. I know that
Mhm.
when I have left a stage and change is in the air, from a room that was dead when I stood up.
Mhm.
That I have effectively done the job of my spirit world job, right? Which is
Mhm.
to effectively move through the world as myself, and to affect a change that leaves the world better than it was when I found it, the time I found it, whatever that means. If it's just the smile of one person at a particular restaurant, if it's a hug to a stranger, if it is a conversation that helps to fire a neuron, if it's awareness. Um, those are the motivating things that get us to get up at dark o'clock in the morning
Mhm. Mhm.
and to
Mhm.
engage with a group of people who've decided in community with us to get up dark o'clock in the morning
Mhm.
and to hold sacred space. So yesterday I posted my baptism.
I saw it this morning. Oh, you had cardinals and things, notes from the justice before he died. David, you really come from a. I saw your little baby faces. They were anointing you and splashing water on your head. And what the
Yeah.
hell? Your
So
family lineage is incredible.
it's the fifth century of the Smith family in what we can count back to, and roughly the third century of what was in America. So one of the founding families in the United States of America, who a gentleman by the name of John, I guess I'll run through very quick with you. A gentleman by the name of John Smith, who was a captain in the military during the French and Indian War, captured and enslaved, captured, purchased and enslaved a woman called Fran, who was of noble lineage according to her slave record. Fran's baby, Suki, which is a nickname meaning sweet thing, sweet, right? Whose name was actually Matilda. Matilda ended up Fran was gifted in the slave reckoning in his death and will to his son, who was John Smith, the Virginia senator, who had a pivotal role in government in America at the time. And her child, Suki, was also gifted to John. John and Suki had a relationship. And from that
Wait, the
relationship,
slave master.
the slave master and the daughter of Fran, who was
Yeah,
also his slave,
yeah.
Suki, John and Suki, John and Matilda, created a line of children who were extraordinarily light skinned. And John, when he died, freed that entire line in his whatever and inherited them lands. So my mother's lineage from the Smith side down to me begins really in that inheritance of lands, which was originally a land grant from the King of England.
Mhm.
So that solidly put this family on its footings for what would successfully be its track about education, about medical world, about all these other sorts of things, about sending missionaries back to Liberia to found it as a country, about working within governmental affairs, a race issue. These were not always wonderful things. There was a lot of racism within the family of dark and light and this and the other. But I say all that to say, in that conclave like room at my baptism in 1988, name this child, which is the line that we say in the Anglican Church when we are getting ready to create the name of this baby. That's really your naming. Was surrounded by what we call the haints, if you will, right? All of these spirits, all of this energy, all of this family in one space, the Jenkinses and the Debenhams, but then the Smiths and the Hydes and
And it
the
was a
others.
private ceremony, and the place was
Absolutely.
full.
Private
There was a
ceremony.
letter from Thurgood Marshall.
Yes. So I was baptized by Bishop Quentin Ebenezer Primo, who was the Suffragan Bishop of Chicago, and he brought with him a friend of my father, my grandfather, Charles Debnam, was Thurgood Marshall, and he read a letter, which he begins and says, "One day I want David to have this letter for himself," and he takes from the altar the letter and he reads it. It's from
Mhm.
Supreme Court Justice Thurgood Marshall, and it talks about the dream of baptism, about the beauty and the hope and the roots that are tied down to the soil and to the land that would firmly plant you in security. And so I
Mhm.
called my mom. I said, "Where's my letter?" She said, "What letter? There's no letter." I said, "Where's my letter?" It was, she said, "I don't remember." And then I said, "Look at the video." She said, "Oh my God, where's the letter?" And my mother, I have I've been interviewing all of the people in her line and actually my father's as well. But I've been interviewed because I think sometimes we lose their stories, their contextualization of life
Yes,
and how they move. And
yes.
what has been interesting to me about my mother is she doesn't see herself in any way, shape, or form as special.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I think that one of the things that we get to do when we come to this audience is we get to heal trauma bonds, and bridge gaps in society and in relationships that allow us to speak to an educational truth that is often hidden. So we can
Mhm.
say, well, this is what it was actually like in 17 whatever for a
Mhm.
family who was enslaved,
Mhm.
who gained freedom and property
Mhm.
and land and
And
heritage.
when you know your heritage, your lineage, you're a little freer in your soul.
You
You
walk
know,
differently in the
yeah,
room.
you do walk. I'm telling you, you walk differently.
Different
You
in
know,
the room. And
my grandmother was born in Cuba.
yeah.
Her her parents were in love with each other, and my great grandparents did not agree with it, so they left and ran away to Cuba. And so my grandmother, my father's mother, was born in Cuba, and there's this whole lineage that we were talking about it, and it talks about the spirit of the woman that came back to live in Jamaica with her parents that became my grandmother, right?
Right.
And how she impacted. But you're right, we don't talk about these things, and we feel sometimes if we don't have this, not sometimes, if we don't have this history, that we're kind of floating around trying to figure out where we belong, how we belong, and we
But
move through the
truthfully,
world differently.
yeah,
Yes.
I mean the human beings are pack animals, and we should never ignore that. We are species that need to be in groups. We're not meant to be lone eagle survivor like things.
Yeah.
That's not a truth of the nature of a human being. And in that truth, the clan, where you come from, your family, and sense of belonging are important. So whether it's a sense of belonging which is inherited or adopted or given or accepted, the story and truth of how you behave is the thing which is passed on. So your children behave like you because you behave like your parents or your
And
great
behave like,
parents. And
yeah,
so there is a quality that allows you to rest when you understand from whence you come,
yes,
where your
yes,
behaviors come from.
absolutely,
And you
absolutely.
are able to move through a room with a dignity and a power which is quiet. And should be. It shouldn't be this sort of loud thing you wear on your
Mhm,
shoulder, but you
mhm,
kind of have an armor about you that says, if we survived 500 years
mhm.
in this place, what makes us think that we can't survive the Trump administration? And that's why we come to the table. That's why we get up in
Mhm.
the morning because we say, well, wait a minute, we have survived a lot. Hitler came to the world that same period. Slavery happened
Yes,
during that period.
1941. Yes, all of that
Segregation
slavery.
and Jim
What
Crow
happened to the
laws
Jews? And
and
oh my God, you're
all
so right.
all that came through that period. And
Auschwitz, when they were
somehow
gassing the Jews, when slavery lasted for what, 200 years.
all
We
of these
we we are
things.
we came through all of that. You're
And so if
absolutely correct.
if you carry either the genetic DNA or the physical memory or the behavioral aspects of the people who came before you in your line
Mm-hmm.
to be you, and I want you to be careful because every time you multiply back, you can multiply how many thousands and millions of people it took. The reason why you're special is because it took so many millions of people to create you. There's nothing in this sequence that is like that on the earth because it required millions of people before you to do that. So whatever that is, that survival of the fittest means that you are the best candidate for survival today. Because in that DNA, in that memory, in that shared experience, you become whoever you are. So for me, um, when I get up and address any group, the first thing I do, as we have talked about before, is you bring the ending of the runes. I bring that whole line of people who made it possible for me to stand in the room that I stand in today,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
whoever they are.
And this is why I love you. Laverne says the question, who are you? So many can't answer that. We only identify by titles. Yes, that's something that annoys the hell out of me, which is why I never talk about anything other than I'm Andrea. But what do you do? I have a bunch of things. I don't know. I'm using your word now.
No,
I do not. I
I
don't.
don't. I don't. Right? That's
Because
that
this
whole
is
deal.
too much to, you
Yeah.
know, and I could hear in my head yesterday, look, sis. So I turned off all the news. I didn't watch any news. I didn't do any of that stuff. I climbed into my Zen space and wrapped a blanket around me. And I had to just keep saying, you are love, you are kindness, you're here for a moment such as this. Don't be afraid. There are people around you, there are spirits, there are people that brought you this far. And so Marguerite says, right, David, we survived, are surviving, and will survive all of this. Our DNA is a historical perspective. And yes, and I really do enjoy that. Shaquilla says her twins' birthday is today. They're my goddaughter. Happy birthday. Shaquilla, what are
All the
they? 20?
Libras in the house. I love it. Yeah, I love it. All the
Yeah,
Libras.
yeah. And so they're beautiful, beautiful souls. This past Saturday, some young people that I've been watching and mentoring, all of them went to Central. They came into town for a baby shower, and I said to Denise, I said, I really want to see them. Um, oh, Andrea said, you are the best candidate for survival alive today. Yes, thank you for that encouragement, David. See,
It's
I knew
true.
you would have been. And
It's
so they come together, and I'm letting them talk. They hug and kiss everybody. And then I said, one by one, I want you to tell me what's going on in your lives. And I swear to you, they were like, they all kind of and froze and kind of looked to the left and looked to the right, and then they began spilling. These are all young people in their 30s, late 30s, and they talked about all the things that they were dealing with, managing, navigating. They all have these beautiful gifts and talents. Many of them have been laid off. Many of them are afraid of being laid off with all their advanced degrees, whatever. And I said to them, this is not the time to be avoidance of taking risks. I said, you're all a risk avoidant. You're accustomed to getting a paycheck. And I get it. But what happens when you have to create the paycheck? All of you today collectively, all of you sitting here have this, they are amazing, all of them. But they said they'd gotten so accustomed to collecting a paycheck, they weren't quite sure how they would navigate without one. And so I gave them some food for thought in thinking about how they could take the collective gifts and talents that they had to make it a space for them to survive. I said, remember when we were segregated back in the 30s, 40s, 50s, how we took our collective talents, everything that we've learned and done and created things. I want y'all to think about going back there. I'm so
returning to the base, right?
yes,
That's the return to the
yeah.
base principle.
And today is supposed to be the great resignation. Apparently, the president had made a deal with folks in federal government that they had until about a certain amount of time to resign. And then today is also the day when they're coming towards the October 1st, which is the budget, right? And
Deadline.
how things may shut down. And and they listened. I came home, I laid down, I woke up, I had another thing that I saw that fully explained what was going on in the country right now. That this has been planned for decades. Before I was born, before you were born, and it was given many iterations. And there is a movement to set this country back to center, to give it back to just white folk. And in that movement, that means a lot of folks are going to lose their jobs and a lot of immigrants are
I,
going to be put out of the country. Hold
I
on.
want to
And
focus that on
yeah.
just white folk. It's
Mhm.
just Anglo-Saxon Episcopalian white folk.
So it ain't just all white folk.
And that's the big lie. And the thing that
Mhm.
people forget all the time, and the thing that even white people don't hear, is that the return to alt-white Christian nationalism is a
Mhm.
root. It's not what is focused on. It's returning to the original white people. That does not include the poor white people who are being affected on Medicaid, who can't buy groceries today,
Mhm.
this and the other, and they're beginning to feel the burn as
Mhm.
the original white person creates a
Mhm.
wealth and lineage. And
Mhm.
there's a duality there because my people come from some of those original white people, mixed
Mhm.
with ancestors who were enslaved by those original white people.
Mhm.
So I see that power line on both sides of that fence. And what I
Mhm.
know is that the people who are not part of that group are the ones who are screaming about Charlie Kirk, are the ones who are angry about Epstein files, are the
Mhm.
ones who voted for Donald Trump. Those people are not a part of this return to original whiteness because the plan was never created for them.
Mhm.
Even many generations ago, as of yesterday, it was not created for them. It actually
Mhm.
damages them most.
Mhm. Mhm. And so we have to navigate through all of this the best way we can. And when I listened to this thing that was 42 minutes long, it talked about destroying people, even if they have to make up things and make it look like whatever they're saying is the gospel truth. And then when they finish, ripping apart the whole country, as it seems, then they'll start to hire people at like one third. The people that are left behind now will at one third of what. So I need us to figure out what our collective talents are, and I
But
don't know
also,
if
there is something. Again, the chess playing mind says, well, what happens when you fire 2/3 of the country? Well, you create anarchy. So
which
this, well, we'll just hire 1/3. Well, that's cute, but the problem is now you have a revenue gap because you have no one paying taxes. 2/3 of the country have no job, and therefore they pay nothing to the government. 2/3 of the country are starving and hungry and poor. 2/3 of the country find themselves on the streets. 2/3 of the country figure out what you do is you create civil unrest. The point, of course, which is what he's
which
been
is
saying, is he
why
wants to create civil
which is
unrest,
why they're putting the armed forces in in different cities because they expect all of this to happen.
including
And
the
it
port in Philadelphia where there's extra ships, including the railroads where there
no,
are
I
things to
saw
do.
that.
Did you see that? I'm glad
I
you read
did.
this. I was telling the people I was addressing city council and I was on my way back from wherever I was and I crossed that bridge and took a video of it. Of all of the extras, there's not one open slip. Philadelphia often has half the slips full. There's not one open slip, and all of those have
And I
guns
saw
and
one
pistols.
warship at Penn's Landing. I was like, wait.
That's right. Why do we have warships docked here? I mean, things that I know, and there are things we have to be aware about. So no, they haven't brought them here via the Amtrak rail, like they did in other places where you could see them coming in. No, they parked them on the water.
Hmm. And
It's a
around the
fair.
Caribbean, yeah.
So I think that what we know is coming. And I think now we have to stop pretending up this idea that people can or cannot travel based upon their thoughts on Israel.
Baby, did you see that? The thought that the news have to get his permission before they post anything, put anything out when they come to the White House for the press briefing.
The Third Amendment is very clear about militias. The Second
Yo.
Amendment is very clear. The First Amendment is very clear about freedom of speech. All of these things are very clear. We just don't seem to care to follow those things.
Or
And we
maybe we're
have
just we're just in a space of I'm just gonna live my life. Maybe that's the
that's a bad space. That's a
that,
terrible space. Don't do that. Don't be in
David.
that space. Come about that spirit. As soon as you
He
can,
said,
don't do
"Come up out that spirit." Yeah, it's a
it. Do not.
it's an interesting it's an interesting place to be. Before I forget, happy birthday to
I will.
Marguerite's son. He shares the same birthday as Shaquilla's twins. Happy birthday to
Yes.
all of them. May they all thrive in whatever way we can, and may we give them what they need so that when we have left this earth, because remember we will then be ancestors, that they can move on and do whatever needs has to be done. Um, all right, let's get to the news. Lord Jesus, where do you want
Well, I
us?
would like to talk about Mr. Kirk for a moment, if we could,
Okay.
because we discussed last week how I do not believe that anybody should be politically murdered. It's just a tenet in the. I also, at the same time that I don't believe anybody should be politically murdered, don't believe it is your job to mourn people who were not necessarily respectful of your existence while you lived.
Mm-hmm.
And that all said, news about Miss Kirk has come forward. Miss Kirk was a 17-year-old beauty pageant person in the Donald Trump ring of beauty pageant people. Miss Kirk was sent to Romania and given a charitable organization at 17 to run, which was supposed to take babies from Romania and help them find adoptions. The country of Romania decided to put her out of Romania because too many of those children went missing and did not find adopted homes. She comes back to the United States of America, does some things with the Epstein family, and ends up married to Charlie Kirk. It would
So what you're
behoove
saying, so what you're saying, if I'm hearing you correctly, is that it wasn't accidental that she ended up married to Kirk.
it seems very planned. It seems interesting that this is the news which is coming out about Miss Erica, particularly as it surrounds childhood abduction, in the enslavement of people who are children,
Mm-hmm.
the trafficking of minors. This is all interesting because it is deeply rooted in her own personal story and the verified facts that we have about her, which are being talked about everywhere but in American media, speak exactly to this truth of someone who went to Romania and the country said, you have to go because you are connected to
Is
this
this this?
organization.
I have not seen this in American media. I've heard this story
Yes,
through BBC, but I
BBC
have
has
not
put
seen
it
it in
out, Al
American.
Jazeera has put it out. It's been talked about on our entertainment news programs, but places like ABC and CBS and Fox, all the places that used to ask me to come on and do all these spots, they have not touched this. And I'm so intrigued as to why American National News will not talk about the genocide in Gaza, will not talk about Kirk's wife's connections, will not talk about the plane that mysteriously moved someone from one place to another after Kirk's death and turned off its signal. And when it turned its signal back on, just happened to be registered to someone who was working for Benjamin Netanyahu and who also had a charity that dealt with the victims of sexual trafficking, right? That was his plane, which left 5 miles down the road and had its signal turned off. I also would say to you that it is very interesting that the person who's currently in custody, this young man, it has come out in FBI files, did not confess, was
Mm.
probably not even at the scene of the crime at the time. But the video they have of someone running doesn't really match his height and weight ratio, according to AI, and that his father did not give him up to the FBI and say, my son is the person who did this. All this is coming out, right? That is the context of the world in which we live, which is why I say, please do not walk around here eyes wide shut. It does not behoove you to walk around here eyes wide shut. It behooves you to look into the truth of this country, of this nation, the things that are going on of other nations. Why are we so concerned with some other nation making all the decisions for the things that we do here in the United States of America? At the United Nations, what was interesting to me was to watch people literally stand up and leave the room when Benjamin Netanyahu got up to speak,
Yes, I
and to
saw that.
see that morning that the
But
that the
he is doubled down. He
double
has
down.
doubled down. He has raised parts of Gaza. He has doubled down.
And I believe what will happen, knowing how history has played out before, the European Union just basically said they would not support Benjamin Netanyahu, um, and the United Nations made the same decision that there are crimes. In fact, the only reason why Benjamin Netanyahu was not arrested on Friday is because Donald Trump had made it possible for him to come to the UN and be protected. Um, so I would say to you, if history repeats itself, and that is correct, what will happen is they will continue to destroy Gaza and they will continue to raise it and they will do whatever damage they can to Palestine. And then the European powers will stick someone into Palestine to recreate it in a European way. They will switch their alliance from the alliance of Israel to the alliance of Palestine by again occupying it illegally with Europeans in some way, shape, or form. They'll stick in a prime minister. They'll make sure that its government is run in a way that helps the Western world. That is the politics that is at play. And I think it would be unwise to believe that anything else was going to happen. So will they
Mhm.
stop BB from blowing everything up? I don't think so. But I think once he has blown everything up, they're going to blow up BB. I think they're going to go for it. And the second thing that makes me say that, and we realize the risk of this, but the second thing that makes me say that is when you are the one person who has everybody's secrets, you are the target. So it was cute for a while to say, well, I have everybody's secrets and nobody will move. But when everybody has had enough, and then the one bully in the room has pushed everybody into the corner, the next
Yeah.
option is to fight.
They all push. Yeah. Yeah.
And when they all come to fight together to remove the one bully in the room, that is a historically accurate chess move.
I with all of this transpiring, what what can we do? Can we do anything?
Yes, you can be in opposition. Even if your opposition does not result in the total stop of something,
Mm-hmm.
your opposition is a roadblock.
Mm-hmm.
It's a speed bump, which causes someone to go back, slow down, this and the other. It's like playing football for many people, and people are going to be surprised that I'm going to use a football analogy. But imagine how many times you have to stop the ball at whatever yard line to stop the advancement of a ball to a goal. And if the clock is running out at the end of the game, the entire job of the defense is just to slow down the actions
Mm-hmm.
until they can stop it, right? We are working in a defensive like way in the United States of America to slow down the advancement of the ball. One of those things is being played by the Republican Party, who the Speaker of the House will not currently allow the latest senator to come in, House
Like
member
she
to come
won
in.
the
And
election. He won't
she won the
certify
election.
her.
He will
Yes.
not certify her
Yes.
because he knows that she is the deciding vote on releasing the Epstein files. So he's going to wait until after the Epstein file vote to then allow her to come in and be a member, although she has won the
And is
election
that
and is
legal?
in
Let me
Washington. It is
that's
not.
not legal. But they're doing
It's
whatever they
not
want to do.
legal.
Yeah.
And so the excuse he's using is he's going to wait for the finishing of the ratification of those paperwork. If I were her home state, I would send those things overnight. If you want to play that ball, you want to play that game, don't have to play the game. Let me send those papers to you now.
Wow. They're saying here that Tavis Smiley and Roland Martin have all said what you've just said about what's going on. So we are not the only one having this conversation. And someone else reached out to me. Like I get all this information, but let me tell you what was interesting to me. I reached out to someone in the federal government in the level of Congress, and yo, the folks are talking about up there finding somewhere else to live except here. But when they go and try to gain access, they're being denied with that United States passport. And so now, if you don't have something set up like you go to London all the time, England, it's like where you've been, you're not going to gain access, right? It's getting more difficult. And so, what I was asked was, well, what do you do for people? How do we get dual citizenship somewhere else? Hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars in some cases. And even then, with your United States, that we have been here in this country, and there's a feeling that many are going to be put out, the immigrants, right? Which I'm thinking the immigrants are not losing because they're going back to their home countries and, figuring out because they have skills and talents that they can do, which then would help their home countries, right? Take their gifts and talents to help their home countries. But those that are left behind, that can't afford A, to get out of here, B, to find dual citizenship because they can't afford it, they don't have the money, they weren't born somewhere else. Like an immigrant has citizenship somewhere else in their country of birth, and they can move from their country of birth and go live anywhere else around the world that they want to by applying, from their country of birth, if that's what they choose to do. But it almost feels like we're being made to be stuck here, and the window is closing to leave.
Yeah, that's true. And the next question one has to say from a historic standpoint is this your land? Is this your country? Do you take ownership and belong in the place and space in which you live? And if the answer is yes, then you might find yourself at a quandary of understanding that you will have to fight to keep your freedoms, to keep your life, to keep your country. That it may not be that the option is to leave. It may be that the option is only to go to battle. What I will say is very interesting watching the tides turn is that I do not believe that the battle is going to be MAGA Republicans against the rest of the world. I actually think what the government is doing right now is affecting most horrifically MAGA Republicans. And they
Mhm.
have not gotten the answer. So I'm finding now people like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens in agreement.
I know.
I'm finding them in agreement with people on the left who are spitting about what's happened. And what that says to me is that when you have taken those people and lied to them so much and broken them down yet again, as angry as we are that they allowed the hole to be
Mhm.
put into the boat, they are also the people who are saying there's a hole in the boat. And I think that that rising up, the fear that the government is going to have to deal with is the fact that they have ostracized their own base into a place of anger, and that anger is going to spew against them too. And so this people rising up and speaking to the Constitution of the United States, to their law, to their country that they have built with forefathers, whether that promise was for them or not. When you attack a person directly, their defenses go up, and suddenly they forget that their enemy is the black guy next door, and they remember that their enemy is the one who starved them today. And that is something that people need to remember, that it is time to coalesce with one's neighbors, with those across the line, and say, hey, listen, I know that we don't always like each other, but I need us to understand that it's getting done to us together.
Mhm.
And so we can lean over and take it, or we can say, not today. And I
Mhm.
think that while, yes, there are those of us who are privileged enough to be able to get out of the country and take our passport, flash it, and move, that's not to say that where we go won't be in the same crisis. It's also,
Absolutely. France, you see it happening. Poland is deadly in fear of Russia because they keep infiltrating their airspace. NATO had to jump up to help Ukraine because Russia was bombing the hell out of them. And you see all of this stuff taking place around the world. And oh, by the way, global warming, which everybody say is not a thing, double hurricanes coming together, and when a child.
and the committee on Bangladesh understands. I mean, this is something that I was dealing with for the whole year. And
And
so,
and and another thing we're not talking about is India, who has been ethnically cleansing anyone who's dark skinned. Don't even, if you pay attention, see how many people in these United States who say, "Oh, I went to India and had a really good time." They very rarely allow us there, and they're ethnically cleansing the people that are there, that they believe are beneath them, et cetera, et cetera. You have to be born to,
there
and they're
is
not talking about it.
oh yeah, it's the immigration issue of the Pakistanis and the Indians and who is who and where are they from, and then you have the Bangladeshis, which are in the middle of all that, who are not welcome in either Pakistan or India, but who have come to a place. And then, by the way, global warming was going to remove Bangladesh because of its
Mhm.
rising water levels, which would basically
Mhm.
desecrate the country and force mass exodus of the Bangladeshis into these two nations.
Yeah.
Suddenly, through fashion, right, interestingly enough, through textiles, they've become the number one resource for exported textiles into the parts of Europe and all these companies who
Mhm.
use them. Therefore, there's
Mhm.
been renewed interest in saving Bangladesh. This
Mhm.
is the conversation globally which is happening. This is the movement
But we're
of
not
the nations.
discussing at
We're
all.
not discussing it. And
And
we're
and
also
and then
not.
and then let's talk about the sleeping giant, China, who has been in every country, taking over everything. And they go in and say, because there's billions, over a billion of them, they say we have the expertise, and they do, the engineers, etc. We will come and fix your roads. We will come and do your infrastructure. We will, and next thing you know, they've taken over. Jamaica right now is screaming that they can't even go to the beaches where they've freely explored. They can't work in certain places. They don't. All around the world, we're having these issues. And China is the one no one's really, this is kind of like it's all in the periphery, but they're the one I'm watching. Okay. Cause baby. And so when we sit and we have all this conversation and regurgitate the news
Yeah.
versus
You
what
know,
you and I are doing, what we're saying, go look this up, do your research, ask the questions. And after you ask the questions, if what you see and hear doesn't sit well with you, then I need you to say, okay, now what do we do next? How do we
and
plan?
do it while you can. I mean, we literally are looking at laws being put into action that would silence us legally. Like right now, the law in America says freedom
And
of
it's
speech
happening
today.
very quickly,
It's
David.
happening very quickly. Currently, is the idea that you should not be able to talk badly about Israel. Next will be you can't talk badly about Russia. Suddenly, you won't be able to talk badly about the President of the United States without going to jail or
That's
having a
already
passport.
happening.
This,
He's
there
going
we
after his
go.
enemies, which he said he would
Absolutely.
do. And the
Absolutely.
interesting thing that I saw, I read a thing that said even if they do this today, those same 90% that voted for him before would do it again.
They
He
would do
has
it
a
again.
base that is not moving at all. So then what do we do?
You allow that base to crumble and fall. You do not stop them from being starved. You have to allow that. I mean, the thing is, if you've signed your own death warrant, then you have to go. And
In the
that
name of
sounds,
in the name of what? I want to
well,
ethnically
what
cleanse
happens is when
America?
you're going, and I want to go back because I said this then and everybody said I was a meanie poo. When COVID happened and you all were out here running around insisting that these girls go get a vaccination, I said, let them die. And you said, oh, you're a meanie poo, you're this and the other. I said, Mother Nature has a way of seeking its own level.
The ones that were a
Water
part of his
seeks its
base
own
that
level.
kept saying they didn't want to. Yes,
That,
yes.
let them in mass not have whatever. They will in mass go with nature. And they won't be here to vote. But no, you all were so busy packing the lifeboats with these girls who said they wanted to eat you for lunch. That's fine. Now they ate you for lunch, bit off your arm. You said, I don't want to hear about it. No, 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 no. You should have let them go before, naturally. Now you have the same issue. They've shot themselves in the foot and through shooting themselves in the foot, put a hole in the boat, and now it's taking on water. I need you to get to a raft and let them sink. Stop trying to create this all for all boat that's going to save people. Carpathia did
The
not have the same
niceness.
capacity
Yes.
as
Yeah.
Titanic.
Yeah. It was Cherry Gregg
Yeah.
just said she doesn't like nice people because nice people will get you hurt. She just nice people are not.
Uh, but call me the meanie poo again, but I believe that when people show you who they are and tell you who they are, believe them the first time, let them go. When people
Mhm,
say, I have to put this thing in here to destroy you, and you
mhm,
realize that you're sitting on a raft and they're sitting on the boat they shot, let it sink. Please stop
mhm.
handing these people a lifeline. They are your friends. They're my friends. I have a lot of friends who shot
They
themselves in the
live
foot.
amongst us. And then remember, there was a movement with J. Edgar Hoover back in the 50s and 60s where they paid 800,000 folk, neighbors, to spy on their neighbors.
Uh-huh. I'm sure it's happening today. Most ICE agents are not people who you don't know. They're the
They
people in
went
your
on to,
community.
yeah, yeah.
They're the people who walk amongst you during the daytime. That is why they wear masks, so
Because
that
they
you
ain't never
cannot
know, oh, that's
identify
my neighbor, right.
that it's Bobby from down the street.
Mm,
It's the off-duty police officer. It's the person that you
mhm,
trusted at the grocery store. And
mhm.
this is what we're finding. It's the secret police that's been created out of people. Um, History repeats itself. This is not new.
Mhm, mhm,
So be vigilant and careful about how you make your movements, but also make your movements.
mhm.
And do not believe that the person who shot you once won't shoot you twice.
Yeah. There was an article that I read that even though they've been threatening to come to Chicago, what's stopping them is that the city and the workers are all pulling together with their dump trucks, whatever. And a Chicago gang member said, "Come on with it. We'll just go ahead." I was like, "Oh my God!" They literally threatened the ICE agents and says, "You come up in our neighborhood, we know what to do with you." So
Right.
in my to my mind, that is the resistance that you're talking about on some
Well, it's the
levels, right?
resistance, and unfortunately, civil requires that. I want you to also know that the president has told us he's looking for us to have civil war.
He has,
He said
over
it
and
many
again,
times.
and I don't know why we don't believe him.
Stunningly, when the president of Ukraine was visiting the White House and mentioned about this deal in which when the president of the United States is at war, you don't have to host an election. Trump chimed in quite quickly and said, "Oh, wonderful! This is great." He told us on the stage election night that we would never have to
Have
vote
another election.
again.
Uh, child,
When
child,
someone shows you who they are, believe them.
child.
Believe them. He's never lied and said he's not going to do these things. He's been telling you
That's
he's
the
going to
thing.
do
He has
everything he's
always
done.
said it. And they were like, "It can't happen. We have a constitution." And I kept saying to them,
That's a
"Do
piece
you
of paper.
understand?"
That Constitution was written down the street. I'm looking at the building right now. Down the street. It can be torn up in the same way it was written.
Mhm.
And so when people say, oh, well, that piece of paper is the Magna Carta, it can't be undone, it's not true. God did not write that piece of paper. It was not put in a tablet on stone, and that was not the purpose of that. That's not how that came to
Mhm.
be.
Mhm.
And just as man wrote that piece of paper, man will destroy that piece of paper. If
Mm.
you can keep it, is what
Yeah.
Benjamin Franklin said to the woman outside who asked, "What type of government have we?" He said, "This is a republic if you can keep it."
If you
And we
can
are,
keep it.
we are proving that perhaps we could not keep it.
Yeah, yeah.
Or
And
can
for
we?
such a young country too. Like we've seen this happen in older countries, but America's what, 200 and will be 250 years old?
250 years old,
Yeah.
half of the age of my family.
Cha, cha, cha. Viola says, David, the church shooting in Michigan at the Mormon church. Well, what are your thoughts on that?
I'm not surprised that the temperature's risen to this, particularly within the Mormon understanding, because the Mormons have the same sort of line toting that we see in alt-right,
Mhm,
national Christian behavior.
mhm,
I am not shocked by these
mhm,
shootings. Again, thoughts and prayers don't go far enough. They are ridiculous. What we need is gun legislation that makes smart gun ownership and or the lack thereof by citizens appropriate. We have enshrined that in Constitution, and people want to use constitutional duty to say it can't happen.
mhm,
Meanwhile, every other article of the Constitution is torn apart and thrown aside whenever we feel we need to use it. So I think it's a bit of a rouge for us to say, alas, this can't be done. Um, we must. But until we are sick and tired of seeing the sick and tired, we will continue forward where we are.
mhm,
I see no end to mass shootings, to church shootings, to domestic violence,
mhm.
while we have a nation which is under attack by itself.
Yeah. So the Independent wrote this. My scalp itches for some reason. Michigan Mormon church shooting later. Suspect identified as former U.S. Marine Thomas Jacob Sanford. It says 4 people were killed. It is now up to 4, and at least 8 injured after a gunman rammed his car into a Mormon church in Michigan before opening fire on the churchgoers. Police said the shooting took place at the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Grand Blanc Township, about 50 miles north of Detroit, at 10:25 a.m. on Sunday. The suspected gunman was Thomas Jacob Sanford, who was subsequently killed. The local police said officials say 7 of the victims are in stable condition while 1 is critical. After smashing his vehicle into the church, he opened fire on hundreds of people, including children, gathered inside for Sunday services. A fire broke out soon after, which police said Sanford started with an accelerant believed to be gasoline. Explosive devices were also found. Um, so part of what I am thinking is, we've always said churches are not safe. Um, the synagogues are very safe because they make sure that they have security and they know what's going on there. But we are again in a place of complacency. We're in the house of worship. This cannot possibly happen. So we're just going to move in and believe that God will make sure that we are safe. God said, "Be wise as a serpent and harmless as a dove." Plan. This is all a part of the planning for all of you because we know anything can happen at any time, anywhere, any place. It's a lot, child. It's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot.
And it continues to be a lot and will be a lot. I feel like I don't want to be repetitive in the statements that we make to the broader world because I
And
think
we keep
repetitive.
saying it, but David, I keep saying, listen, Monica says, I just saw a mass shooting in North Carolina over the weekend. We've gotten so accustomed to these mass shootings too.
They lose their effect. And that's the point. When you are repetitive about a reality, the shock and awe and disdain for it suddenly softens. And you
Yeah.
begin to drink bitter coffee as though it were normal.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think that we have to be careful about normalizing this type of behavior. But I also want to say to you that at the birth of this nation, this behavior was pervasive.
Oh, shit.
The
Yeah.
shooting of your neighbor and blaming it on Native American
Mm-hmm.
people was pervasive.
Mm-hmm.
The dumping of your
Mm-hmm.
own supplies into harbors and setting the villages on fire
Fires.
to abstain from the British was
You know,
normal. The
yeah.
fighting of Europeans against Europeans was normal. The execution of masses of people who lived on the land that was stolen was normal. The forcing of people into indigenous communities of concentration like camps was normal. This behavior is in the DNA and blood of American people. They behaved like monkeys and roaches when they got here, and they're behaving like monkeys and roaches now. Only be it for a time of peace that they settle on this idea that perhaps they shouldn't be like monkeys and roaches. But again, these are the descendants of people put out by Europe for being monkeys and roaches. Let us not disillusion ourselves into saying this behavior is new or shocking or unreasonable or crazy because this is how this country was founded, sadly.
Mm-hmm.
And when we
Mm-hmm.
remove that history, when we stop teaching it, when we move into patriotic histories that make it seem very glorious, we forget this truth that actually the people who came here were quite barbaric in many ways and
Mm-hmm.
put out of places for being barbaric, for being criminal, for
And
not
passed
going with
down
the
in the
society that
DNA
was
on
living.
some level because, right, these are learned behaviors that we have to unlearn. Somebody said, Alexander says, I tell people to watch the 1990 movie Arlington Road. It shows how an American citizen was pulled into a plot to do what's labeled as domestic terrorism. Viola said she saw the clip on Mother Bethel. And Marguerite says all of this has been planned for decades. Yeah, Marguerite, this thing, and I don't know if I said it. I think I said it to Andrea Robin Manley. This thing that I shared with a few people the other day was that the first iteration of Project 2025 was it goes all the way back to Nixon. It's just been called something else over and over again. The first iteration that I knew of was in 1982 when Ronald Reagan was president. That's the first iteration. But apparently, this thing goes back all the way to Nixon.
It is not new.
No.
What is new is the way that we react to it
Yep. Yep.
by
And
doing nothing.
people have said to me, we were cool and till we saw how black women, notice black women are on the list, right? Black women were getting all these degrees and they were getting the jobs that we should have. And I literally in 2016 said, y'all, please be careful. This was what was said to me. Everybody, I don't know if we were in denial or, we've come this far by faith and we've made all this money and we're just going to show out how we made all the money. And we keep, and God, have faith, believe that you're going to be okay, but also you can't sit and wait for the anvil to fall on you. I have been telling folks this for the longest time.
The only
They took
denial that we should be allowed to
everything
be in is a river,
yes.
honey, and we're not there. It's in Egypt. Don't be in that river called denial. Get up out of there. Right? It's over in another country. It doesn't belong here. Denial doesn't run through North America. And so, what I say to people all the time is please understand that this idea of you are going to be okay is not true. You're going to have to fight, struggle, and be a part of this resistance and or flee. There is a fight or flight. And you're going to have to make a choice about this. You're going to have to decide what you're going to do. And I would say to you that this land that we sit in is absolutely worth fighting for. So when
Mhm.
you ask yourself at the beginning of this show, at the top of this hour, why is it that you get up? It's because you're doing the fight to keep the country that you live in. When I put my butt on the line and go to city governments and yell and scream at a microphone on the record, it's because I'm putting my butt on the line for the place that I live in because I love it so much and I love the people who are in this place so much that I feel a need to protect it. And
Mhm.
so we get up in the morning and we go out and we do our jobs fighting on the line as we do now. The
Mhm.
weapon currently is a word. Tomorrow it may have to be more. And
Yeah,
we have to
Alexander.
make that decision
Yeah,
about
Alexander says Jenny Thomas was raised in the first generation, and it was before Nixon. Watch the frontline expose on Clarence and Jenny Thomas. And the other thing that strikes me as incredibly important, the amount of seasoned um, journalists that have just quit, walked away. Whatever
it's
it is that
very
they're seeing
I
on
mean
the inside, they're walking away.
their lives are threatened. And they have to decide, is my job worth my life? And when you report fact, there's a target on your back. You were very bold as to talk about China today. I keep that word out my little lip because I
because I mean you see it, I keep saying it is the sleeping giant that no one is discussing. Everybody's talking about Russia and Ukraine and the United States and Israel. Oh. And I'm just like, what world are we living in? And I don't begrudge anybody. I went to your thing last Saturday. This past Saturday, what the hell did I do? I sat with the young people. This upcoming, no, I went to this Friday. I went to Mr. Man Frisbee's jam session on Friday. This
oh
upcoming
we saw
Saturday,
that. That did good.
oh, it was hilarious. Just trying to keep your foot on firm Makata. And then this upcoming Saturday, I have two funerals, and I was like, I gotta go see Gladys Knight and the Legends, and like I'm trying to find small spaces of pockets
Joy.
of happiness because I'm telling you, every morning there's this awakening of, oh God.
Well, you're a very empathetic and spirit connected person, so you can feel in the atmosphere what's going on. And one of the prayers that I pray every day for is protection, right?
Yes.
Is spiritual protection and guidance,
Mhm.
because I think that you and I naturally open our lips, and what comes from it can be very dangerous for us,
Mhm.
because it is often filled with truth that people are not ready to receive as
Yeah.
truth or
And
hear.
yeah, and so
Um,
in that vein, I prep my children and my grandchildren, right? I make sure I spend as much time as I can with them, leave them with memories. I'm doing like these different videos. I'm writing because they can my phone can be erased. I'm writing things for to leave for them, that kind of stuff. And my husband and I, my husband finally said to me yesterday morning, I have finally come to the conclusion that you're very well more versed about this than I am. Because I'm paying attention, and I told him, I said, we cannot keep regurgitating everything we see and hear in the news, because even in that it sounds crazy, all the things that we're regurgitating, but this ish goes way deeper, way deeper, that no one wants to wrap their heads and their minds around. So we have an election coming up in November to retain the Supreme Court justices, Pennsylvania Supreme Court, and yo,
big.
and because we know that elections can be won even when it seems like you've lost,
Electronically.
and so. And because we know across the state of Pennsylvania, Philadelphia votes, but the middle of the state is very purple, reddish, and that the Pennsylvania Supreme
Reddish.
Court covers the whole state, right? The whole state has to vote.
Pennsylvania
And
is very red, other than Philadelphia and Erie.
yes, yes, even Montgomery and Bucks County that used to be blue are now purple, so
Very
it's
red.
red and blue. For those of you who don't know the color wheel. And so then the other thought was, in our history, there's only been one judge that has never been retained. We're about to see something different, right? So paying attention. What does that look like? Marguerite says, a journalist I know just said that Thursday she's retiring next week and said she's getting out while she can. Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot. And so imagine how those that have to cover the news and read the news verbatim, who are doing historical research as they've been taught to do in school, but the research bucks up against what they're being asked to read on the teleprompter. And when they go in and say, but this doesn't match that, and then they're told, you want to keep your job? Ooh, we're living in a time. And so it's only a matter of time before they come for you too, because all the independent voices
That's right. That's
are
right. And
here.
so we recognize that now. So I said what I had to say very early on. Y'all can go back and listen to the tape. But let me tell you something what David Jenkins will not be doing. When that law passes through and they say it is illegal to speak about this, please don't believe I'm going to be out here speaking about it.
You got that right.
Because I do value so I'm telling you now, so you can go back and rewatch the tape. I'm telling you everything I have to tell you right now before they say it's illegal, because I
Yep.
am
Well,
not
we
pretty and
said,
orange.
you
It's not my
notice.
color.
Do you notice we stopped talking about certain things? Like in November, we were like, "All right, you got to do this, you got to do." They were like,
That's the end
"Well,
of that.
I don't know what to do." I had a pastor who was like, "I don't know what to tell the congregation." Well, now they're coming back going. I said, I ain't don't have nothing else to say to you. Y'all go ahead and do you, because we've been talking about it for months
If I
about what
say
you're going
it,
to need to do to prepare, right? The
and if
value
you
of
didn't
this
save
dollar.
that video before we moved to YouTube, and you did whatever else before that, I'm so sorry for you. And again, I cannot help you with the
Yep,
lifeboat that you
yep,
overfilled.
yep.
But for now, I can talk about the things which are legal to talk about. The moment they become illegal, you're gonna see me go.
Wait, we'll be out here going. Such a lovely day, isn't it?
It's a beautiful day. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. It's a gorgeous day, isn't it?
We will talk
Yes,
about the
I
birds,
understand
the
you have a hole
bees,
in
the
your behind, but it's
butterflies.
beautiful. Yeah. Oh my God, that bullet wound looks fabulous on you. Yeah. No,
Mhm,
because I'm not, orange is not my color. And,
listen,
and
and but it's very possible to be made a political prisoner. It's very possible that in all of these things that we're talking about is possible. So when I say, when we get on here every day and we try to have every Monday, we try to have these conversations,
it's
don't
a
take them
risk.
lightly. Don't shake your head and go, this can't happen. Don't. Okay, try to figure out, because and even the folks, Alexandra said the checklist is complete, David. Very good, Alexandra. Even the folks that are now currently in government that are dilly-dallying and dancing around what can be, what could be. There's infighting, at the federal level because they're like, well, if we do this, we're going to be in trouble. If we don't, there's this feeling that we're still working on decency and kindness and doing, what the law says, which has
Yeah.
just gone out the window. And the Democrats are now having what they call them, press conferences, and nobody's showing up. News not coming, because if you dare to go and report what thus said the Democrats, so
I think
listen.
that we know where we are. We've seen it in history. If you don't know the playbook, there was a wonderful woman who got on, I think it was Facebook or Instagram, did a live where she read through the history of something, and somebody was checking her, and everything they said, well, yeah, but Donald Trump, Donald Trump, Donald Trump. But she said, oh, no, no, no. I just read to you the history of Nazi Germany.
Yep,
And, and the comparison was one
I
on
saw
one.
that video, and then they were like, well,
I want you to understand where you are, and I don't want you to be shocked or confused or blindly aware or walking with your eyes wide shut when they come for you. And so it behooves you now to make the moves that you need to move to make sure that things are good for you or that you prepare to stock yourself for the fight. Because one of those two things is going to be your reality. You're either going to be here for the fight or you're going to be here for the move on. I'm telling you right now that 2026 in Philadelphia is going to be something. And it's going to be popping. And I imagine that we will allow ourselves to get just up to that line, to that 4th of July, and we'll probably be there. That will be the kickoff, because I don't think that Donald Trump wants to not have a celebration that glorifies himself on July 4th of 2026. So that said, um, I think within the next 2 or 3 months is when you're going to see a lot of border closing to American citizens. I think within the next 6 months through the winter time is when you're going to see a lot of things in play from a government level where people are not outside all the time, where they're sort of inside, busy minding their business because of the winter. That are going to be some really interesting things to look at. I think these elections will show you that how you vote doesn't matter. And I think what we're going to end up with is a movement towards totalitarianism from the authoritarianism that we currently sit in, because we are not living in something other than authoritarianism now.
and that was Congresswoman Madeline Dean said the same thing. She's like, this is it. We're in authoritarianism, but because we
We're talking
still
about
have a
authoritarianism.
certain amount of freedoms and we're still kind of doing what we want to do, and there are
They
concerts
will
and we
be
can get on
moved one
boats
by
and do what
one.
we want to do, and there's this false sense of, and I'm hoping that we're wrong. I am hoping that people are just showing up outwardly what they're doing, but inwardly they're planning and prepping. I'm praying that that's what's
I
happening.
I want to make a terrible prediction that has sometimes haunted me. I believe that the only thing that will stop this is the war that has been set up in the Middle East currently with Israel. I think a lot of our politics, and I don't think, I know, and it's been widely reported and talked about, so many of our political decisions are based upon what Israel would like America to do.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that without such a nation making those decisions through APAC and other such and this and the other, that this country would make the political decisions it makes. I also don't think it's possible for America to afford a civil war and an international war in Israel at the
At the
same
same
time.
time.
And so I believe that whichever one pops off first is going to be the one that it puts its money towards. And
Mm.
it is in the best interest of America to make sure that it is not the domestic one. And all of this is dystopic and sounds horrific, but it's rather true from a chess standpoint and how you play a game. The European Union, NATO alliances have all told us that they are pro Palestine and in two-state solution, if not in full state Palestine, but they are not on this delete Palestine kick.
Mm.
The only country standing by Israel today is North America's United States of America. That is very telling, but it also says to me that the day of Benjamin Netanyahu being able to control the political rooms of the rest of the world has come to a halt. And that is very scary for Benjamin Netanyahu. That is very scary for Donald Trump. And that is what we need to keep our eyes on the ball of, and to watch what happens with that, because it would be financially impossible for us to fight both of those wars at the same time.
Well, David, on that note, this is why I go to the gym after I talk to you, because Thank you so much, my
That's the
brother.
prediction.
That
That's the
that's
prediction.
your
I can't.
prediction, and I'm going to
It's
pay
my
attention and
prediction.
see if your prediction comes to fruition.
Let us
Because
see.
everything we talked about last November, and even before that, we were talking about this leading up to the elections. I remember sitting at the Democratic National Convention, watching all the performances around me, and going really still, and saying to myself, "This feels performative on many levels." And if Hillary if they would not allow Hillary to win, what makes us think that they were going to allow this black woman, no matter how degreed, no matter how whatever, how polished, whatever she was, they were going to allow this to happen, no matter what it took. So as we were running around, not we, not the collect, not me, but the collective, we were running around talking about how terrible this candidate was. Donald Trump was a terrible candidate and did we learn anything and blah 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 blah. We were talking about it, but there was no real clear evidence for the people. Like, follow the bouncing ball. We just kept saying how terrible this person was, how terrible this person was. And we saw it as it was playing out in the news, what was getting ready. We saw Elon Musk taking center stage, right? We saw all these things happening, and we kept saying, no, 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 no. And so today, even though people are saying, well, she won the popular, we could see that she won. And I'm looking at them going, but who's president of the United States? So, and these data centers that our electric bills are going up because the data centers are like, well, we're building these massive data centers for AI. Now, Google is advertising. When have you ever seen Google advertise? I think Google is advertising about how well you can use it. They're encouraging more, because the more we feed our voices into it, the faster and more powerful these computers become.
Eyes wide shut.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Do not see the yellow bus that passed you by. Do not look at the yellow bus. There was no yellow bus. What bus? You did not see a
Yeah.
yellow bus.
So
You saw
people's
paper.
electric bills are going sky high because of these data centers and the amount of water and electricity that it's using. And we're just sitting there going, well, what?
And there we get back to the point of who will be the people who will be up in arms first. It will be the people who don't have access to those things, who do see a real truth in the turn of their cost. Those people are getting on the bus and going to Washington, D.C. to replay what they did the last time, except this time the government they're going to be angry with will not be the Biden administration.
Right. And the government that they will be angry with will put troops on the street to shut you down. So this freedom, even before Biden left office, there was and it was in a Republican state, Georgia, where they made it illegal to protest. That they were making these plans and putting things in place long before. And then when President Biden left, he said, "You all are not even ready for what's coming." He knew.
You know, you're not
He
ready.
knew. And so I am affronted by the fact that we're having this conversation now. What are we talking about when we're having these things that are going on, these book tours? I literally am affronted, because I'm like, are you coming to these book tours to tell the people exactly what they could be doing? Or are you coming to the book tour to talk about how upset you were that you didn't get this, this, and this, and that this was
We're
what was
coming to
going
the
on?
books to tell you
There's
that we're getting ready to run again.
shit. I said I wasn't going to cuss today.
History tells us what's coming in the future. Why does the politician put out a tell-all book? Because they intend to run for something. They want
But
to
we're
tell you their
living in a
policy.
country that tells us they're never ever going to be ready for a woman. In fact, we're living in a country where they reverse Roe versus Wade. We're living in a country where they tell us we can't. This cannot be. This, you will not have as long as they're in power, and it's going to take years. We allowed certain factions to get into positions of power that were able to go inside and do what they needed to do. We're not going to be able to unravel that for years to come, because we were, it can't happen. It shouldn't happen. We blah 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 blah. I need us to get
If
out
you
of our
said,
emotional state and
yeah,
become critical thinkers.
If you said to me from a critical thinking standpoint, who will be the next president of America if we had the chance at a free and fair election, I would tell you that it was Gavin Newsom. And I would tell you that because he is a tall, white male who is straight with children, who speaks to the id of the American spirit. That is all. He is an excellent politician in many ways. I have had the pleasure of knowing him through portions of my life in that realm. I have seen his governorship. There are things that we disagree with, things that we agree with. I've watched him be the one person who fights back at the bully with the same sand in the eye, but it has nothing to do with any of that. It has to do with the fact that Americans for 250 years and before then have been told that their savior is a tall, white Christian male.
And on that
And that is
note,
the answer.
this episode of Mornings with Marvel is officially over. I'll see you when I see you. Bye, everybody. Bye, David. Bye bye. Cha.